Hi everyone and welcome back. In this video, we are going to implement a refresh token and access token mechanism in the auth service. Auth service is kind of complete. We need to just do two things. First of all, access token and the refresh token. Like when you generate a token, we should return both the token, and with the help of refresh token later, you can get the access token. And then permissions and authorization based on the permissions. So these are the two things we are going to talk about. Authorization, why we need it? Let's say you are a root user, then you can create other admins, you can fetch all the list of users. But if you are just an end user, you cannot access a lot of APIs, like let's say list of users, you are not allowed to access it. Or there will be other APIs we are going to add, which is, let's say, add permissions, because in this whole system there will be one root user initially, and that root user will create a restaurant admin. The restaurant admin can later create the restaurant users. Okay, but this root user needs to be bootstrapped so that he can create other restaurant admins and all. And this is all called role based authorization. Once you are logged in, what you can do is decided based on your role. So we will create a role guard at the router level, and then we will see what you can access. Okay, access token and refresh token, that's a important thing. And for that, what we are going to do is we are going to use, like, let's say it's a login auth service. We are creating tokens here. So instead of creating one token, we are going to create two tokens. One is access token, another is a refresh token. And we are going to use two different secrets, access token secret and refresh token secret. So if we go to the config service first, config service, this is, we can call it as a access token secret, and there can be another is refresh token secret. JWT refresh. Okay, so we need to populate these in our default config. Token secret, auth is auth config. Here we are going to create the same variable, access token secret and refresh token secret. This is the default interface, and inside the interface, access token secret and refresh token secret is of type string. Then we'll get these things from the env also. These two values we are going to put in the environments. This is our env, JWT access and refresh, because these are the two different tokens. Okay, so in the config service now, important part is how we generate these two tokens. We already have our auth service. Inside the auth service, wherever we are creating tokens, we already know how to create a token, right? So JWT service, we already have access. Instead of doing dot sign, let's write our code and we will refactor this. Const, we are going to do to get the two token, access token and refresh token together. So we can just make it as a simple promise dot all. This is an array. Inside this we can call just dot jwt service dot sign async, because we are going to create a token asynchronously. Here we are going to pass arguments, like this is the payload, this is the signing mechanism, and then another is this dot jwt service dot sign async. This is the payload, and this is the, you will pass the expiry and the secret. Okay, so what we are going to pass is user ID, and and that is inside data dot user id. And if you want to add an email also, I mean, this is a payload, right? We can just pass this whole data object. This data object, and second argument is the secret variable. Secret is here we can access the config service. This dot config service, we do have access. Dot get auth, this is access token secret, right? And we need to pass the expire in. So here you can pass in 15 minute, it's a string 15 minute. Okay, similarly you need to pass the expiry for the refresh token. It would be 7 days, 7D, and it will be refresh token secret. So this is how you will get both the tokens, and you can return them. Now what we are going to return, I already have the data. Structure the data here, and access token that you will get in the response, access token and refresh token. You just destructure it, refresh token. Okay, another important part is once you call this create token method from somewhere, there is another thing you have to do is we will have the refresh token in the database also. So let's go to user entity and here call as type string. This is varchar long text, so don't specify the length. It is refresh token. Okay, once you create the refresh token, store that refresh token in the database also. So here we got the token. Instead of returning, first what we will do is this await this dot update refresh token in the user entity to which it belongs. Refresh token, we have the user dot id here. This belongs to this, or user dot email, because that is also unique. And then what did we get? Data dot access refresh token, and then we will just define this method private update refresh token. Here we will be using maybe user service, because here this is a email is of type string, and you got refresh token which is of type string, and here we can call update this dot user service dot update refresh token by id. Some method we are going to define id and email, and ref token by email. Okay, this is async function, and this method we are going to define inside a user service. This is email, and reference email is of type string. Reference token is of type string. This is simple. You are just doing update, but before even updating, we will just create the hash version of it. So what we will do is const hash token, because it will be long, right? Await this dot hash data reference token, and here we can define this method which is hash data which will maybe we'll add another module which is argon2 cd apps npm install minus save, because we wanted to create a hash version of it. So it will be a token is of type string, and here we will return this, the hashed version of it. Dot hash, I think this is how we create the hash version of any token. Okay, so and we need to update this the user also. So this dot user repo. Okay, how we do update? Let's see, we can first get find one by email, then fields to update and save. That's it. We can put the try catch and all, not here. Here we'll put it, find one by email dot to lowercase, we got the user object, and then save entity, field to update. What field we are updating? Refresh token with what value? Ref token. It is complaining. Let's see. Okay, this is an object. Okay, sorry, this should be a property. This is an object and you pass it in save entity. Okay, hashed token. Refresh token is hashed token. We are saving. Okay, this works fine. Is it like I need to specify the types also? What it is complaining? So we can import the argon2. Is that is clear now? So from auth service, this is how it is going to happen. This will update the refresh token and return the data. We are good. So when we restart the server, it will check, okay, there is something new in the entity and the synchronization is for true in the database. In database service, database module, we put the synchronization true. So whatever there is a new attribute in the entity, it will create that column in the table. Coming to auth service again, so this is how we are creating token, returning it, and we are updating the table also. So we need to change one more thing, because now we are using the JWT service.sign in different way. We need to comment the auth module, because here also we are passing it. So we can just simply, we can skip all these things. So JWT service.for jwt.module.register. Yes, so this is, we don't need to do a dynamic initialization right now. So inside auth module jwt service.register, and we can pass the empty object. That should work. Now auth service is creating both the tokens and returning it. We are getting it. Now the important part is, because in the strategies currently we are using JWT strategy, so it will also be different. Here we need to create access token strategy and refresh token strategy, because there may be a request coming with the JWT token, access token, refresh token API will have a refresh token being passed in the authorization header. So it will be access token JWT strategy, let's say, and this will be access token secret. We don't need to change anything here. There will be another strategy we are going to create is refresh JWT strategy. So just copy and paste it here. And why we need it? Because there will be another API endpoint which will accept a refresh token, not the access token. Okay, we got the access key and secret key, and here we will call it as a refresh token JWT strategy. and we will update the auth module with these things. Okay, we got both the strategies available. Now we will create a route, because the login is returning both the things, both the token. Now in authentication, in the controller, we can create a refresh token route or refresh token route here in auth controller. So we already have something like sign in is there and refresh. So here in the refresh, we are going to use instead of JWT auth guard, which is admin guard. Okay, here we are going to use refresh token guard and access token guards. Guards will also change here. So inside the guards, so this guard is talking about JWT token guard. So we'll create access token guard. And another is refresh token guard. Okay, access token guard will be simple. Similarly, we are going to have a refresh token guard. Refresh token guard, and it will be JWT refresh. Okay, and how to use it? Let's say we can remove this for now. JWT auth guard, admin guard. This we can use later for the role based authorization. We will create it later. So access token guard and auth guard. And how do we use it? Inside the controller, we can put that inside the route component. So here is our auth controller. In the auth controller, let's say we also how to use this, right? Now refresh token API will start using refresh token guard. We need to import these. Refresh token guard. Okay, similarly there will be access token guard. Okay, the refresh API needs a refresh token guard. And let's say the logout, you are trying to access one logout API. The logout API does is it resets the user session. Okay, for that we are going to use access token guard, because if you want to log out, then obviously you need to send a access token. Otherwise, how would I know that you are the logged in user? So you can see the simple use case, how we are using both the guards in different endpoints, refresh token guard. And in the refresh token guard, we are going to do a couple of things. The API endpoint is refresh, return this, we are accessing the request. So already it is using refresh token guard. That means we already have the user object inside request. And we need to do one more thing, because here we got the user object, which is nothing but the decode payload, because in this strategy of refresh strategy, we are putting the user object inside this validate JWT payload. Validate JWT payload. Okay, we already have access token there, because it is returning a user object, and user object we are putting inside a request.user. So let's come to this controller, auth controller. What is request.user? Whatever you are getting here in the refresh token, this is the whole user object you are putting inside a request.user through this validate function. So inside auth controller, this request.user already has the refresh token inside it. So if I just talk about console.log, whatever is the refresh token is already there. User dot refresh token. I mean, there any type? Okay, we haven't created type, but this request dot user is of type user entity. And then here we can call auth service. Let's do this because we need to validate the refresh token. If it is really good one, this dot auth service dot refresh token. Here we are passing user ID. I mean, we can just pass the whole user object. What's harm in this? Okay, maybe refresh tokens. So we are going to get inside auth service. An auth service has this refresh token method, and what it does is, first of all, it will validate that the user ID is correct. Let's call this inside auth service public async. Sorry for this. Public async refresh token. What is the objective of this? First, we will need to validate whatever the refresh token coming from the client is the same as it's in database. If same, generate the new tokens for the user. It takes the whole user object is of type user entity, and here we can get two properties from here. The ID, okay, I think it's ID, and the access token that we are getting from user. Oh, it's not coming. User entity. Okay, it's a sorry refresh token. We got both the properties. Now what? How we validate it? If user doesn't exist, first we will do a database call for this ID. Const user data. Okay, and we can just call this dot await this dot user service dot find one by email, and we'll pass the email also we can get from here. Let's say if email is not, if this user is doesn't exist or deleted or something is there, if user data is null, we will just throw new forbidden exception. We'll set the message later. Otherwise we will just found a match is match found, because this is a hashed version of access token. So this dot how we do it, we need to use argon2 dot verify. I'm importing it here. What was that import? Let me see in the user service. Go to auth service. We are going to use this for the validation. Await argon2 dot verify. I think there is a verify method. Verify method takes two arguments. One is our refresh token, and the refresh token coming from the user object. So user dot refresh token, and the refresh token which we have, sorry, this is user data, right? This data is coming from database, and this user is coming from the token after decoding. Let's say if is match found, if refresh token doesn't match, then it will, we have to throw the same forbidden exception. Otherwise we are good, we can get the tokens again. So this dot get tokens. What happened? I am inside auth service. This dot create tokens. Then create tokens takes the whole user object. You can see user object, and it will just create the same expiry, email, password, permissions, expiration. And we don't need to set expiration. Expiration is being set somewhere else. So here create tokens, and then we generated a new token, right? So then the same method, we need to update this to the database. Await this dot update refresh token. Where was that method? Update refresh token, we have an email ID, that is user.email, and we got the tokens dot refresh token. Oh man, too much of all these things. And then tokens, this is returned as the new set of tokens. Okay, so this is simple how we validate the refresh token. Once validated, how we generate a new set of token. Okay, so this is how actually the refresh token and access token works, and we have these two strategies that we have applied to the auth controller: refresh token guard and access token guard. So refresh token guard will actually decode the authorization header, will validate the user through these strategies which are defined, right? Based on the payload, it will validate the user. If yes, it will put the user on the request.user, and then we will validate here. So it's a logout. For the logout, you can just set the refresh token null. So this is what you can do: refresh token, simply logout, and inside logout, what we are sending a user object. Let's create a logout, and we need to define a type. We are just sending a user with any, that's not good. And here public async logout, and what it should do is here sending us the user object. What we should do, this dot user service dot update refresh token by email user dot email, and we will set it as a null. Okay, and we need to update this method. If this refresh token is coming null, then don't create a hash version of it. If refresh token is there, then create the hash version of it. If it is not there, then just do this. Because this is null. And return maybe this also, we have to return. I mean, it's a repetition. We will refactor the code a little bit later, because when you do the logout, we need to set the refresh token null. So even if you try to use the refresh token to access your resources, you cannot, because that user doesn't exist now. The refresh token is null. So here auth controller. So we have these two strategies which are defined. In these two strategies, there is a refresh token strategy and there is a auth. So in the refresh token, what we are doing is validate. Inside this validate method, do we need to check this? Because okay, let me correct here. It's a refresh token, not access token. With this refresh token, we really don't need to do all these things. We just send the payload. So here we, inside a validate, we get the request object and the payload. For the refresh token, we don't need to validate in the database that user exists, because in the refresh token, that's a string. We are comparing that against the database. So we can simply say is request.get. This is a simple validate method. I think we can replace it with this. Request.get authorization, replace bearer with the trim. So this refresh token, you just return it. We are not going to do much with this. Or even if you do this, let me just see this, because let's say if you are sending a refresh token, that will still a valid, and that contains the payload. I mean, you can do, there is no harm here. You are actually checking if user exists for that refresh token, and you send the whole user object. Okay, let's see this running in the demo, and then let's check it how it works.